Good evening, everyone. I'm Alexandra York, and I have produced this evening for the Literary Committee of the National Arts Club. And on behalf of our president, Alden James, the Board of Governors, and my fellow literary committee members, I would like to welcome you to this already scintillating evening. I think that the film was a great hit, and now we're going to be talking to some of the most important authors today on Ayn Rand. So, as many of you know, she was born in Russia in 1905 as Elisa Rosenbaum. She suffered through the Soviet Revolution and made her way to her dream country of America at age 21 to become the world-famous novelist and philosopher Ayn Rand. Now, her books were a hit from the very, very beginning, and she became a bestseller worldwide, but something interesting has happened. She was one of the most controversial thinkers, writers of the 20th century, of course, but in the past couple of years, her books have skyrocketed again to bestseller status. And we're going to ask a little bit about why tonight. Her Atlas Shrugged sold 500,000 copies last year alone. So there's an enormous, vibrant interest in her work, and we're going to explore some of the reasons why. When the president of Ayn Rand Institute was asked this question, why the sudden revival of interest, he replied, and I quote, "People are discovering the prescience of Ayn Rand's writing. They're seeing the policies of Atlas Shrugged acted out by our government officials today. They're looking for answers on how to stop government intrusion in our lives. Atlas Shrugged provides those answers and more," end of quote. Now, this fresh popularity surely is impressive, but Ayn Rand's books have always been so. In a 1991 poll sponsored by the Library of Congress and Book of the Month Club, readers selected Atlas as the book that had most influenced their lives after the Bible. In a separate 1998 poll given by Modern Library, in which readers chose the best 100 novels of the 20th century, The Fountainhead took both first and second, with Anthem and We the Living following in 7th and 8th place on the list, putting all four novels in the top 8 of 100 favorite novels of the 20th century. Now, interestingly enough and predictably enough, critics were also asked to put their list of the top 100 books, and Ayn Rand's books were absent. So, now moving from fiction to philosophy, as the philosopher of what she called objectivism, Ayn Rand boiled it down to this, and I quote her, "My philosophy, in essence, is the concept of a man as a heroic being, with his own happiness as his moral purpose in his life, with productive achievement as his noblest activity, and reason as his only absolute," end quote. So, with those thoughts in mind, before I introduce you to the panel, I think they have a right to know who you are. So, show of hands, please. How many of you have seen the documentary Ayn Rand's Sense of Life, either here or elsewhere? Oh, how many here? Wonderful, wonderful. Now, how many of you have read any of Ayn Rand's works at all? Oh my. And lastly, how many of you have read her magnum opus, Atlas Shrugged? Okay, panel, you know who's here. Now let me tell you all who your panel is. Mimi Gladstein, on my right, has 2 books on Ayn Rand for discussion tonight, the most recent being the 2010 volume 10 of Continuum's series on major conservative and libertarian thinkers. The other book relevant tonight from Mimi is a reader's companion to the novel Atlas Shrugged. It's called Atlas Shrugged, Manifesto of the Mind. At the University of Texas at El Paso, where she is currently Associate Dean for Liberal Arts, Dr. Gladstein has also authored the new Ayn Rand Companion, revised and expanded edition, and credited with Chris Sciabara's feminist interpretations of Ayn Rand. An internationally respected scholar on both Ayn Rand and John Steinbeck, she has twice chaired the English department of U of T, been director of women's studies, and directed the Western Cultural Heritage Program. Mimi Gladstein. Next and in the middle, we have Shoshana Milgram, who holds a PhD in comparative literature from Stanford University and is professor of English at Virginia Tech. She has published articles on a variety of 19th and 20th century figures in French, Russian, and English American literature, including Napoleon Bonaparte, Victor Hugo, George Sand, Chekhov, Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, Nabokov, and many, many more, including, of course, Ayn Rand. She is the author of introductions to editions of Hugo's Toilers of the Sea and The Man Who Laughs, and Neville Shute's The Seafarers. Her especially noteworthy essays on Ayn Rand novels have appeared, along with several other writers, in 4 volumes edited by Roger Mayhew, Exploring We the Living, The Fountainhead, Anthem, and Atlas Shrugged, the latter essays on Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged under consideration for you tonight. Her current project is the authorized biography of Ayn Rand's life up to 1957, that's the year that Atlas was published, on which she has been working since 2002, and to be published when, Shoshana? When it's finished. Next we have Anne Heller, who is a newcomer to write about Ayn Rand. As a magazine editor and journalist, she has been managing editor of the Antioch Review, a fiction editor for Esquire and Red Book, the features editor for Lears, and the executive editor of the magazine development group at Condé Nast Publications. She has also written for a number of national magazines, and her book under consideration tonight, Ayn Rand and the World She Made, is not only her first biography, but also her first full-length book, demanding 6 years of research on her part. Anne? Now I want to mention another author who is unable to be with us tonight because she's in California, but I think she's important for you to know about, and it's also a new book out on Ayn Rand by Jennifer Burns. It's called Goddess of the Market, Ayn Rand and the American Right, and it merits your attention. She is now assistant professor of history at the University of Virginia. She began her work on Ayn Rand as an early paper, then it became a special study for her PhD dissertation, and only later was it turned into a book. This progression took 8 years of research, and the final result highlights, among other things about Rand's life and work, her passionate promotion of capitalism and her defense of limited government, both springing from her personal growing up experiences of life under the Soviet communism. So thank you all for being with us tonight, and I'd like to start out by asking each of our panelists to read a short excerpt from their book so that you can become acquainted with their writing and with their approach.